Welcome back, everyone. Today's deep dive is going to be a little bit different, I guess you could say. We're looking into this cluster of tornadoes that hit Texas and Mississippi, actually,
Yeah.
on December 28th.
Right.
It's been all over the news, so
It has been.
we're going to use a couple articles here, one from the Associated Press and one from USA Today, to kind of get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
What happened, what it all means.
You know, it's really interesting because these tornadoes were actually part of a much larger pattern of, severe weather across the U.S.,
Right.
which raises a lot of questions about what we can expect going forward, right? What's going to happen in the future?
Okay, so let's kind of break it down then.
Yeah, let's break down.
Let's start in Texas.
Okay.
At least 6 confirmed tornadoes touched down there.
Wow.
And that number could even go up.
Right.
One of the hardest hit areas was Brazoria County,
Yeah.
which is south of Houston.
Okay.
One person tragically died there, and 4 others were injured.
Yeah, we actually know this from Addison Polston, who's with the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office.
Okay.
She was quoted in that USA Today article, and, she was dealing with the aftermath firsthand. So,
Yeah.
That's a lot of devastation they are facing.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just Brazoria County. The storms also ripped through several towns.
Yeah.
Liverpool, Hillcrest Village,
Yeah.
Alvin,
Right.
leaving a lot of damaged homes behind.
A lot of damage.
And then north of Houston,
Okay.
in Katy and Porter Heights, things were even more intense.
Oh, wow.
The National Weather Service actually reported destroyed mobile homes there
Oh, no.
and a fire station that had its doors blown in.
That's incredible.
It really paints a picture of how powerful these storms were.
Yeah, and it just reminds you that even well-built structures are still vulnerable
Right,
to Mother Nature.
for sure.
And, it's important to remember that behind all those statistics are real people whose lives were totally upended
Yes.
in an instant,
Yeah, in Katy, there's a resident, Toby Asamoah.
Okay.
He woke up,
Wow.
and his car had been flipped over by the storm.
That's wild. Yeah, it really highlights that personal impact that can be easy to overlook when we're just looking at the big picture.
There's
Big picture stuff.
Well, while Texas was dealing with the aftermath of these storms,
Right.
another part of the Southeast was also getting hit hard. We're going to shift our focus to Mississippi now,
Okay.
where sadly another life was lost.
Oh, no.
This was in Natchez.
Okay.
A tree fell on a home during the storm,
Wow.
and 2 more people were injured in Franklin County.
It's really important to point out that the fatality in Natchez, it wasn't directly caused by a tornado. So it's just emphasizing that, these severe weather systems
Right.
bring with them a whole range of dangers
Right.
beyond just the twisters themselves, right?
To give you an idea of how widespread this was,
Yeah.
the National Weather Service reported at least 19 tornadoes
Wow.
in Mississippi alone.
Wow.
We saw damage in Boudet, Brandon. Roofs were ripped off of buildings, trees were down.
That's bad.
It was just a scene of widespread destruction.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just a Texas and Mississippi story.
No.
The storm system stretched even further,
Oh, wow.
causing damage in Athens, Alabama.
So it was a significant weather event affecting, a huge part of the Southeast.
Right.
Which kind of makes you wonder,
Yeah.
is this kind of late season severe weather becoming more common? Like, is that something we should be worried about?
Well, we always think of tornadoes as a springtime thing.
Right. Yeah.
So to see this level of activity in December is definitely pretty unusual.
It's unusual. A National Weather Service meteorologist, his name is Frank Pereira, he was quoted in the Associated Press article.
Okay.
He said, it's fairly uncommon to have such a strong outbreak this late in the year.
So what's going on here? Is this just like a freak occurrence, or is there something more to this?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, because you've got these tornadoes in the Southeast.
Right.
But at the same time, the West Coast is getting slammed by a totally different type of extreme weather.
Okay.
An atmospheric river.
Okay, I've heard that term.
Have you?
Eh.
But I don't really know what it means.
Okay, so basically an atmospheric river is it's this narrow band of like concentrated moisture in the atmosphere.
Okay.
It's like, imagine a fire hose of water vapor
Okay.
aimed right at the coast,
Right. Okay.
and it can just dump like incredible amounts of rain or snow
Right.
in a very short period of time.
Wow. That sounds intense.
It is intense.
So the Southeast is dealing with tornadoes.
Yeah.
And the West Coast is getting just flooded with
Yeah.
all this rain and snow. Yeah, the Weather Prediction Center was actually quoted in USA Today
right.
warning about the potential for like widespread flooding,
Wow.
landslides, even power outages
Right.
because of downed trees and things.
It's a lot.
It's a completely different thing
Yeah.
than a tornado,
Right.
but just as disruptive and potentially dangerous, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
So we've got these two contrasting extreme weather events
Yeah.
happening at the same time
crazy, right?
in totally different parts of the country. It's a lot to take in. And honestly, it makes me wonder about like what role climate change might be playing
Yeah, that's a great question.
in all of this.
That's a question a lot of people are asking, and it's one that we're definitely going to be getting into
Okay.
as we continue our deep dive.
Right.
But first, let's look at the immediate impact of these storms, beyond the tornadoes and the atmospheric river.
Okay.
One thing that really stuck out in these articles was the power outages, just widespread power outages.
Yeah, the reports mentioned that Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia,
Yeah, it was all over.
and Florida.
Wow.
We're all dealing with these outages.
Wow.
And as of Sunday morning, over 200,000 customers
That's a lot of people.
were without power. So-
Yeah, and it's not just like an inconvenience.
Right.
Think about, hospitals trying to operate, emergency services being disrupted, people who rely on medical equipment
Right.
that are vulnerable.
Yeah.
So the ripple effects are really serious.
Absolutely. And, it didn't stop there.
No.
Air travel was also massively disrupted,
Yeah. Oh,
which must have been a nightmare for people trying to travel for the holidays.
I can imagine.
FlightAware actually reported nearly 15,000 flights
Wow.
delayed or canceled,
Goodness.
with the hardest hit airports being Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta,
Right.
Dallas-Fort Worth,
Uh-huh.
and George Bush Intercontinental in Houston.
So as you can see, I mean, the impact of these storms, it really extended far beyond just those immediate areas, the places hit by the tornadoes or the atmospheric river.
Right.
It really highlights how interconnected our systems are
Yeah.
and how, like, a weather event in one part of the country can have ripple effects all across the nation.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder that we're all in this together
We are.
and that what happens in one place can really affect all of us.
Uh-huh.
But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I think it's important to take a step back and understand
Okay.
what caused these tornadoes to form in the first place.
Right.
I mean, December tornadoes are pretty unusual, right?
They are. And that's where we're going to pick up in the next part of our
Okay.
deep dive. So stay tuned.
All right, we'll be right back.
So yeah, December tornadoes, they are pretty unusual.
Wow.
To understand why, we got to look at the ingredients
Okay.
that come together to form these tornadoes. You need warm, moist air near the ground,
Okay.
cold, dry air aloft,
Right.
and wind shear.
Okay, and remind me what wind shear is again.
Oh yeah, that's just a change in wind speed and direction with height.
Okay.
These factors create an unstable atmosphere
Right.
where warm air rises really fast,
Okay.
potentially forming a rotating column of air, which we know as a tornado.
Right.
Right.
But don't those conditions usually occur in the spring?
Yeah, exactly. Tornado season in the U.S., it usually peaks in the spring.
Right.
You have that clash of warm, moist air from the Gulf
Right.
meeting the cold air pushing down from the north.
Yeah.
But as we're seeing, with these recent events, weather patterns can be unpredictable, and the ingredients for tornadoes, they can come together at other times of the year too.
So what happened in this case then? What caused these tornadoes to form so late in the year?
Well, according to the National Weather Service, a really strong low-pressure system moved across the southern U.S., and that brought with it, like, a surge of warm, moist air from the Gulf.
Right.
At the same time, there was this dip in the jet stream pulling cold air down from the north.
Okay.
So you had this perfect recipe, basically, for instability
Yeah.
and wind shear.
So almost like a perfect storm
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
for tornadoes.
It set the stage
Yeah.
for these tornadoes.
So it sounds like a combination of, unusual atmospheric conditions came together.
Yeah.
But I'm still curious about the climate change connection. Like, is it possible that a warming climate is making these kinds of extreme weather events more likely?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And it's one that scientists are really looking into.
Right.
It's hard to definitively link any one weather event to climate change.
Right.
But we do know that a warming planet can influence weather patterns in a lot of ways. For example, warmer temperatures lead to more evaporation, which puts more moisture in the atmosphere.
Right.
And this can fuel those more intense storms, including thunderstorms, that can spawn tornadoes.
So even though we can't say for sure that climate change caused these tornadoes, it's likely that it's contributing to like an overall increase in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather.
That's what a lot of climate scientists are saying. And, we're seeing this trend, not just with tornadoes, but with hurricanes, heat waves, droughts, even the atmospheric rivers we were talking about.
That's a bit unsettling. It feels like we're just living in a time of increasing weather volatility.
Yeah.
So what can we do? I mean, can we even prepare for something as unpredictable as a tornado?
Well, there's no way to totally eliminate the risk of tornadoes or any other severe weather event. But there are definitely steps you can take to be more prepared and minimize that damage. It starts with awareness.
What do you mean by awareness?
I mean, understanding the risks in your area. Right. Like, do you live in a place where tornadoes are common? What time of year are they most likely? Do you have a safe place to go if there's a tornado warning? These are all things you should know.
So it's about being informed. And having a plan.
Exactly.
What else can we do on like an individual level?
I think having a go bag is a great idea.
A go bag?
Yeah. A bag with essentials like water, non-perishable food, a first aid kit, flashlight, any medications you need. Don't forget important documents like your driver's license, insurance information. Keep it somewhere you can grab it quickly if you have to evacuate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Being prepared can make such a big difference in these emergency situations.
Absolutely. But what about on a larger scale? What can communities do to become more resilient?
There are a lot of things. Things like strengthening building codes. Investing in early warning systems. Think about storm shelters and public buildings. Reinforced power lines. Improved drainage systems for heavy rainfall. These kinds of improvements can really make a difference in reducing that impact of severe weather.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot we can do.
There is.
Both individually and as communities to be better prepared.
Yeah.
But it's also pretty clear that we're facing a future of just increasing climate uncertainty.
Yeah.
So how do we even wrap our heads around that? It's a little overwhelming.
I know. It is a lot to process.
Yeah.
But, I think it's important to remember that we're not powerless. Knowledge is power. By understanding the science and those potential impacts, we can make good decisions about how to adapt and how to build a more resilient future.
That's a great point. And speaking of knowledge,
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
You know, we explored the impact of these late season tornadoes,
Right.
the science behind them,
Right.
and the potential role of climate change.
Uh-huh.
But before we wrap up,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
which is the personal stories
Yeah.
of those who were affected by the storms.
That's important. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy to get caught up in the data
Right.
and the big picture stuff.
Right.
But we can't forget
Yeah.
that behind every statistic is a human being
Right.
whose life has been changed.
We heard about Toby Asamoah in Katy, Texas, who woke up to his car flipped over.
Exactly.
And then there's countless others whose homes were damaged or destroyed,
Of course.
lost power, their travel plans disrupted.
It's a lot.
It's a reminder that these events have real and lasting consequences
They do.
for people and their communities.
Yeah. It's important to remember that, you know,
Yeah.
and underscores the importance of empathy and support.
Absolutely. So as we come to the end of this deep dive,
Okay.
what are some key takeaways you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the biggest one is that severe weather is becoming more unpredictable.
Mm.
And we need to be prepared for anything, you know,
Right.
whether it's a tornado, a hurricane, a flood,
Right.
an atmospheric river.
Yeah.
Understanding the risks
Yeah.
and having a plan,
Right.
it can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And it's not just about individual preparedness.
Yeah.
It's about community resilience, too.
Exactly.
You know, investing in infrastructure that can handle these increasingly intense weather events.
It's a collective effort.
Right.
We all need to work together to
Yeah.
build a more resilient future.
That's a great place to leave it.
Yeah.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has been.
But before we sign off, is there anything else you want to add?
I think it's important to remember that while these challenges can feel really overwhelming, there are things we can do,
Right.
Stay informed, stay engaged, support policies that promote sustainability and resilience.
Right.
We can't just wait for the next disaster.
Right.
We have to be proactive in addressing these root causes of climate change and building a more sustainable future.
That's a really powerful message, and one I hope our listeners will take to heart.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll be back next week with a fresh look at a new topic. Until then, stay curious and stay informed.
Yeah, it's easy to feel kind of helpless,
Right.
when we hear about all this stuff, these events that are happening more and more.
Yeah.
But what you were just saying is important. I think we're not powerless.
We're not.
We can make choices
Yes.
that contribute to a more sustainable future,
Absolutely.
both individually and as a society.
Right.
Right. And, one of the most important things we can do is stay informed.
Right.
The more you know,
Yeah.
the more you understand about climate change and how it's going to impact us, the better decisions you can make, both in your own life, but also as you're advocating for change.
Yeah.
Right.
Knowledge is power. That's so true.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners who are feeling inspired right now to take action, where would you suggest they start?
Well, I think the first thing is to reduce your own carbon footprint.
Okay.
This could mean driving less, using energy more efficiently, making more conscious choices about what you buy.
Right.
Everything helps.
All those little things, and they add up.
They do.
Across, millions of people.
Exactly. And I think beyond individual actions, we need to be advocating for systemic change, right?
Right.
Support policies that promote renewable energy,
Right.
sustainable transportation, climate resilient infrastructure. Let your elected officials know that climate change is important to you.
Yeah, so vote with our wallets and vote with our votes.
Exactly.
Powerful combination.
It is.
And we also can't forget about the power of community.
Right.
Getting involved at the local level, supporting environmental organizations.
Yeah, talking to your friends and family about it.
Exactly. All those conversations
Absolutely.
help to build that awareness.
They do.
And that momentum for change.
No, it's about that individual action, collective action, and systemic change.
Yeah.
And it's about having those conversations even when they're difficult.
Right.
Because that's how we start to understand each other.
Right.
And understand what we need to do.
Yeah, build that shared understanding.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive
Okay.
into these tornadoes, these late season tornadoes, and kind of the implications of them, I want to leave our listeners with a sense of, I guess, hope and empowerment.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we're facing some serious challenges.
We are.
But we also have the tools, we have that knowledge.
We do.
And we have that collective will.
We do.
To create that more sustainable and resilient future.
Couldn't agree more. It's not going to be easy.
Right.
But it's essential, Yeah. The future depends on it.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it.
Yeah, I think so too.
We hope you found this deep dive informative and thought-provoking.
I hope so.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Stay curious.
Yeah.
Stay informed.
Yes.
And stay engaged.
Absolutely.
And together we can make a difference.